Hello everyone, look at how pretty that maple tree is behind me. Today, I'm going to clean out almost all of my front deck. I've actually already emptied out the back deck to make room for bulbs. I will maybe show you that at the end to see what it looks like right now. So what I'm going to do today is the same thing. I'm going to pull almost everything. Some stuff I'm going to leave up through winter, some stuff I'm going to leave up for just a few more weeks. So let me take you around and I'll show you what I'm pulling and what I'm leaving. With my herb rack here, I'm going to empty out every single pot so that I can get them cleaned out and stored. I'll probably do the actual cleaning on a different day. Now, some herbs you can overwinter inside. I just don't feel like doing that this year, so I'm not going to. And I feel like that's something that comes up a little bit when you're gardening, is that other people will say like, well, why don't you do XYZ? But if you don't feel like doing it that year, that's totally fine. Like sometimes I feel like bringing herbs inside, sometimes I feel like saving more or less seeds. It's all what you're feeling for that season. So the herbs, I'm gonna save any that I can dry and then empty out the pots. Let me show you what else I'm gonna clean out. This morning glory is all going to go. I mean, it's looking pretty sad anyway, so I don't feel too bad about pulling this one. I have one pot over there on the left, one pot here on the right. I don't think I'm going to do this today, but I also need to empty out these pots. Any pots that are terracotta get cleaned out and stored inside. Any pots that are not, I keep the soil in and I use those for insulation for plants that are going to stay out over winter. Let's see, what else? So this center raised bed I'm leaving as is. I'm going to leave all of the flowers in here over winter, both to give it some winter structure because I'm not planting any bulbs here, and just to leave it for wildlife if anything wants to feed on it throughout the winter. So that's all going to stay. In the front here, for now, I'm leaving the salvia because this has been, I have 1, 2, 3 of the blue, rockin' the blue suede shoes salvia, but it has been the favorite of the pollinators, and it still looks really good, and I still want the bees to be able to gather pollen and nectar, so those are going to stay. Fern's going to stay for now because again it looks okay, but I'm not going to bring this inside, or at least not to keep myself. I might see if a friend wants it because I like the look of ferns, but they just get too messy inside with the leaf drop for me to want to take care of, and again, that's fine. Over here I'm going to leave my dahlias because these I do plan to overwinter, and you want to wait until they die back to get them ready for storage. I have some caladiums back here that I'm actually not going to keep, so I think I'm going to pull those. Everything in this bed is going to stay for now. I have peas growing, I have some petunias and some violas down there. Obviously my sunflower trellis is going to stay up throughout the winter. More dahlias over here. Now this dahlia has not produced a single flower, and it's so close. It's so close to having one. I'm hoping it actually happens before the end of the season, but probably not, just to taunt me. My plan to be native but non-native bed, I'm going to empty out in a few weeks because I think this one's going to be a lot more intense. I have to get the root balls out. I'm probably going to have to refill it with a good amount of soil, and then I'm going to sow seeds this winter or early in the winter. And also it still looks good, so I'm going to leave this for a few more weeks before I start to take on that project. I have peppers here. This rhubarb's going to stay outside for winter, so I'm just waiting for the leaves to die back, and then I just put it in the corner. I have peppers that need to go. I'm going to empty out that Roma tomato plant there. I'm going to leave most of the zinnias, but I am going to cut the ones that are blocking the path. I have to empty out this aqua pot here, so I'm going to pull those today. And let's head over to the other side, which I can't get to, again, because the zinnias are blocking the path. Now, coming over here, this pot is going to be stored inside and become an inside houseplant pot, so I'm going to empty out that. Strawberries I'm going to leave out here till they die back, and I just overwinter those on the deck. I have a ground cherry that I think I'm going to pull there. I'm going to take down this tomato plant, even though it still looks okay. The tomatoes just don't taste as great anymore as the temperatures have been dropping. It's an abnormally nice day today, but it hasn't been that nice the last few days, and the temperatures are just going to continue to drop, so I'm going to take care of that. Already emptied out the gomphrena bed. I have some of the extra ones I cut down here. What I didn't realize, so I had these sitting on the deck waiting for me to bag up, and the birds were going crazy. So I guess birds really love gomphrena seeds. So I'm going to leave those sitting on the bed through winter. And then my raspberry bushes here, these, the leaves fall off of, I push them into the corner, just like my rhubarb. So that is my plan of action. What I'm going to do first, though, is harvest all the tomatoes, all the peppers, all the herbs, maybe some flowers, anything that I want to save and not just pull and throw away. And I'll show you what I do with all my garden waste as I go through this. So let's get started doing that before I pull all of the plants. And I thought I would feel sadder about this moment, but I'm kind of ready to have my period of rest with the garden. So I took about 5 minutes. I went through everything I wanted to harvest. So I have lemon thyme in here, regular thyme, and chocolate mint. And then I have tomatoes and peppers in here. And that's going to be my final pepper, tomato, and herb harvest of the season. So now we'll get to pulling. I think I'm going to start with my herb rack first and then kind of work my way around to the larger plants. Now what I'm hoping for is that all of the root balls come out of these terracotta pots easily. But if I remember from last year, that might not happen. My goal will be at least to not break a terracotta pot. So let me get my trowel and just dig in here, especially the mint. I know those roots are very root bound. And I did have some regular like sweet mint, I think it was mint julep, that I was planning to harvest until I saw a bunch of little bugs all over it. So I wasn't gonna bring that inside, but let's get this out. Now part of me does feel a little bad pulling some plants just because I know insects are still using it. But I feel better because I'm leaving more in the garden over the winter than I usually do. So I hope that I'm at least making up a little bit for that. All right, let's see if we can get you out of this pot. This is the thyme. Oh, not too bad. You can see the roots on that though. But I'm interested to compare that to the mint because the mint is always a little bit more difficult to get out. Drip is out of the containers. I haven't ran the drip in a while. We usually get enough moisture in the fall when the temperatures are cooler anyway that I don't have to run it. Let's see if this comes out on its own. Nope, wishful thinking. Oh my gosh, I can see in here some of the giant roots. Okay, well, that was what I was trying not to do, and I've done it. But look at the difference in that root ball versus this. So something I learned last year and should have incorporated this year is that mint should probably be in a larger pot. And I like chocolate mint better than I like this, like just regular mint. So I might just do chocolate mint in a larger pot next year. Now at this point, I don't think there's really any point doing anything else with this. So I'm just gonna set it to the side and hope I don't break another pot. While we are on mint, I'm gonna try the other one and see if this pot breaks or not. Maybe be a little bit more gentle. Oh, I thought I was being pretty gentle. I will say some of these pots did already have cracks in them, so that could have been what happened there. Or it's just an excuse I'm telling myself. Okay, all came out in one. That makes me happy, and the pot is not broken. We'll do our thyme next. Ooh, also pretty easy. I don't want to jinx it, but having kind of good luck right now. Was this lemon balm next? Really sad about this. It never, well, it's one of my favorite herbs for tea specifically, and it just never really looked healthy this season. I didn't treat it any differently than my other herbs, so I don't know what it was, but I don't even know if I got many leaves off of that. Now this pot does have a crack in it, right there. That was there, I think, when I planted this up, so I'm gonna keep it for now and just be a little bit more gentle with it. This is my parsley, which I already harvested a couple days ago because we made some soup. Obviously there's still some on it now, but I'm gonna pull this out, hopefully relatively easily, maybe not. Oh, there we go. Oh, wow. I mean, the roots are much smaller compared to the roots on my mint, but that is root bound. I don't think I've ever had to get that root bound. I only planted one per pot, right? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Potentially use a larger pot for my parsley next year. But we are down to the last one, which is my rosemary. And there's obviously something else that's been growing in it since I harvested the rosemary, which I did that also a few days ago. I think this one is worth adding to my raised bed as well. And that is my herb rack, empty for the season. Like I said, I thought this would make me feel sadder, but I think I'm ready. Now, I'll go over in a different video what I do with all my drip and everything that I use to water my garden and how I store that for winter, but I'm not going to store those yet. And also, like what I do with the shelving unit. So now, maybe we'll start to tackle the tomato. Before we do that though, what I'm going to do with these root balls is let them dry out. I need to double check. I'm pretty sure we don't have any rain for the next few days, but these are all pretty saturated, which makes them heavier. And once they dry out, they are much lighter weight, which means that I can more easily carry them all down in one garbage bag instead of having to take separate trips. So I'm going to leave these here, RIP to that pot, and we'll move on now next to the tomato. So one thing I've noticed this year is that I haven't actually seen any hornworms yet, and those are definitely, I think, the insect that creeps me out the most in the garden. I remember the first time I saw them back in 2019, I was like, well, I guess I'm done gardening forever. I've gotten used to them now. I do feel bad harming them myself, but I don't like to be surprised by them. But I haven't seen any, and I didn't notice any of my tomatoes being eaten. They're usually pretty well taken care of by the wasps. But let's see if I run into any as I chop my tomato plant down. My first step is just to get enough off of the plant so that I can take the cage out. Take off some of the tomatoes that look like I could ripen them inside. As I pull the tomato out or remove the tomato branches, the zinnias are just slowly coming towards me. So yeah, some of you I think are going to be cut back for sure. All right, that is one giant tomato plant down. All right. Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna, you know what? I'm gonna start hacking the zinnias while we're in here too, just to make some space for myself. Oh hey, I forgot that I had one of the ground cherries in the same bag as the indeterminate tomato. Don't recommend that. Not enough room. All right, let's get you out here. I definitely need to make more room in this pathway, so you guys are all gonna go. So here's my pile here of the zinnias I pulled that were in the way, and then my indeterminate tomato plant. I'm gonna go through and harvest any of the zinnias that still look pretty enough to make a little bouquet for myself. And then I think all of these zinnias I'm gonna leave up again for the pollinators right now to feed off of, and then as they dry, just as any winter habitat for any of the insects. So now we'll move on to my pepper plants back there. I'm gonna do the candy cane pepper plant first. Now this one is my favorite just because of how pretty it looks. Okay, so I hadn't been leaving any on long enough to turn red. So they start as, well, variegated green and white, kind of like the leaves. That's what the fruit looks like. But I was harvesting them all and I never got one to turn red, which is where the chocolate cherry candy comes from. And now I have one. I can't believe I missed you. It's this pop of red. But they taste like regular bell peppers to me. They're just really pretty. So there's one plant down. I'm leaving the root ball in the grow bag unless it was really, really small, because I'm going to use these grow bags and any other like plastic pots that are empty but still full of soil as insulation for my other plants that are going to stay outside, just to protect the root ball over winter. But I am going to take out all the drip. and I desperately need to sweep once I'm done. All right, next up is my jalapeno. You got a thick stem, but let's see if these pruners can get it. Maybe not. Yes. I also desperately need to sharpen my pruners. And then the last pepper plant here, this was a bell pepper, but the peppers were all like really pale yellow. All right, pepper plant's done. And I'll slide you over here as well, just to make room to do my tomato plant next. Pulling the Roma, I'm also going to cut some of these zinnias that are just in the way. And then I only have one more pot after that. And let's drag this over. This is the last one I'm going to pull, which kind of makes me sad because it still looks so good. Now I'm second guessing. You know what? I'm going to add this to my empty out in a couple weeks pile because the lantana still looks, I mean, just like it did during the regular season. Maybe I'll pull the Super Bells. Actually, I think this was Mini Vista. Super Petunias. But yeah, lantana. First year growing it. Very impressed with the performance and the longevity of it. And then we saw it in Nice, which is zone 10, which these are native to, and they were gigantic. Like one plant got to like 6 feet wide, so I know how big they can get. All right, yeah, I'm gonna leave you because you still look too pretty to pull, and we'll just scoot you back. I was so focused on that side of the garden, I almost forgot about the morning glory, which I'm most excited to remove because it's just not looking great. So last year, this wasn't too hard to remove. I thought it was going to be more difficult. We'll see how this one goes. All right, I'm going to cut the stem at the base first here. And of course, it's all wound around the cage. So I'm also going to cut above the cage, just so that is now separate from what's on the roof. Just as a reminder, morning glory is very invasive. Once it's in your yard, it's hard to get rid of. So for me, when I want something that goes crazy on my deck, it's nice, but I can control it because it's grown in a pot. And if any seeds do fall, they fall on my deck, where it's not like they're going to be able to take root and grow. So I wouldn't recommend maybe growing this just in your yard unless you want it everywhere forever. And also potentially spreading to your neighbors. That's definitely happening on some of the fences here in Chicago because everyone's so close. So just keep that in mind. Now, the two plants on both sides are definitely tied together. So I'm going to cut that one too. It's also wrapped around the cage that it was growing near but not growing in or on. So let's separate that. Okay, now we're just going to start hacking away at the top. I definitely think next year I only need one plant to get the look that I'm going for. I don't really have a plan. I'm just kind of cutting wherever I feel tension, which is a lot of places. Now, this is the point where everything feels incredibly chaotic, but I will be able to clean this up and make some space out here. Like I said, the root balls I'm going to leave out to dry. I actually might move those somewhere where it's more sunny. I also like to leave the plant waste out a couple of days too, because again, it just starts to dry out and makes it easier to deal with. So all of this I will bag up and then leave out in the alley for yard waste pickup. And then it's going to feel a lot more open and empty on the deck. So that's just going to be the state of the deck for a day or two before I get everything cleaned up and moved downstairs. There's still a lot that I have to do. Obviously, I left some plants that I'm going to pull in the next couple of weeks. The native plant bed is going to be a project all on its own. I also will show you guys what I do with the soil that I empty out of the containers for containers that I have to bring in for the winter. I need to show you what I do with the containers I bring in for the winter. So there's still a lot of cleanup that has to happen, and it all kind of has to happen in a step. Like I have to take out all the plants first. That way I can empty the pots into potentially empty beds. And then that way I can take the pots and clean them and store them inside. So it's just one step after another. But it feels, like I said, better than I thought. It feels good to kind of be winding down for the season. And as much as I love gardening, I always feel like I have so many hours back in my day over the winter that I don't even know what to do with. So I think that's going to be everything for today's video. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that I do in terms of cleaning up my garden. Let me know if there's anything else that you do, especially if you are on like a rooftop area, any tips for getting stuff down and out of your garden. And I will see you in the next video. Oh, actually no, let me go show you the back really quick. This is what my back deck looks like. It's empty. I had originally planned to leave some perennials in the two beds on the end, but I got more bulbs than I told myself I was going to get, so I am going to plant bulbs in all three of those. I'll show you that as I go through it. I did move some of the perennials to the center bed up front. I have my empty pots here I need to clean up. Those pots with dahlias, and I'm not saving the tubers because it did seem like they had a virus, but I'm going to use, again, the grow bags for insulation. But yeah, I mean, it's so empty looking now. And I'll show you how I plan to overwinter all of these things in just a little bit. Okay, so now that's going to be everything. I will see you in the next one. Bye.